It was raining, and Isabella stood in the street, not knowing what to do or where to go next. She had never thought that in her old age she would end up on the street with a child in her arms. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew for sure that there would be no turning back. In her 50s, the woman was apparently all alone, penniless, as they say. The dark streak in the woman's life began a long time ago, when Isabella realized that she was beginning to bore her children in her own home. The woman was only 45 years old at the time she had buried her husband, who had spent a lifetime beating and calling her names, and was living with her children in a shared large apartment. In total, the woman's marriage to her husband produced 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. Together they all struggled to get along in their parents' 4-room apartment. Isabella was not against this arrangement, because she loved her children very much. The woman, after the death of her husband, tried to help their offspring as much as she could. She worked 4 jobs, wanting to adequately provide for their children. So, Isabella was even able to pay half of the cost of the wedding, each of her children. The matchmakers were happy, not realizing the hard work Isabella used to earn such a huge amount of money. At the same time, she tried to give both the boys and the girl a certain amount of money each month to live on. But they were still not happy. Sophia, James and Oliver all told their mother in one voice, "You're not capable of anything, Mom. All children are given a lot of money by their parents, and you couldn't even buy us a car. What kind of mother are you?" At such moments Isabella would lock herself in her room and cry quietly. Giving a considerable amount of money to her children, the woman denied herself almost everything. She can't remember the last time she bought herself clothes, cosmetics or anything else. Only everything for the house, everything for the children and their wives or husbands. The housework was also done only by her, when besides Isabella there were 3 girls in the apartment, 2 daughters-in-law and 1 daughter. It so happened that even the daughters-in-law in the house did not treat their mother-in-law well. They did not consider Isabella a woman to be respected. The daughters-in-law took their husband's mother as a servant and made her do all the chores around the house. Isabella could not answer them, she just accepted her position. The woman was not surprised that her sons at that age still lived in the apartment with their mother. The eldest son of the family, James, lives with his wife Anna, in the apartment of his parents for a long time. Anna's parents do not like James. They were initially against this marriage in general. Eventually they agreed to the wedding, but they refused to accept James into their apartment. James does not work anywhere. He mostly borrows money from his friends and loses all the money in casinos or slot machines. Anna also does not work, only lies on the bed all day long and sits on her phone, posting photos on social networks. Sophia, the middle daughter of the family, thought that she got married successfully, because her husband Victor is a very wealthy man, the son of a local businessman. Except that she was wrong. Victor is an ordinary lover of partying and noisy parties. It was the windiness of the young man most of all pissed off his father. For such terrible behavior, the businessman kicked his son out of the house with his wife, soon after their wedding. The guy had nothing left but to go to live with his mother Sophia. Victor does not work anywhere, since he has never learned anything in his life. Sophia works part-time as a nurse, studying in parallel at the medical institute. But this money is very little to fully provide for the family. The youngest son Oliver was almost no different from his brother and sister. The only thing that made him better against the background of the others was the fact that Oliver worked and earned quite well. You could say that he was providing for his family in half with his mother. But Oliver also had a bad attitude towards Isabella. He constantly berated his mother for not being able to fully provide for her family on her own, even though she was under no obligation to do so. "I'm hunched over working with my mother alive. You should be helping us," he said, believing that Isabella should give the children more money. Oliver's beloved wife Melissa also added fuel to the fire. She did not work anywhere, sat at home and most of all pestered her mother-in-law with nagging. It was Melissa who pushed her husband and the rest of the family to the worst deed. One day the 2 siblings, along with their husband and wives, were sitting in the kitchen, talking about everything. Mostly it was about how terribly cramped they were living in the same apartment. The young people were clearly not happy with the fact that they all had to share one apartment together. The youngest son's wife intervened with her idea. "Look, really, why do we have to put up with this? We've been living together in the same apartment for a long time. Do you like it? Here's what I propose to do, and the girl began to tell her family about her cunning plan. All the others supported Melissa's thoughts with applause. They decided to implement the plan the next morning. The whole calculation was that Isabella should move out of the apartment into a nursing home. Her children even knew what they could gamble on to get their mother to agree to move there after all. Sophia, the woman's favorite daughter, decided to talk to her mother. She approached her mother in the evening, invited her to sit down and began a dialogue. "Mommy, we have been thinking together. You have been living with us for so long, taking care of us, and we would like to thank you for that. We have a rehab center in town. We're a little concerned about your health, so my brothers and I would like you to move there. There you'll have all the facilities available to you, good food, and nice caregivers to look after you. We'll visit you at least once in a while," Sophia said furtively. "Daughter, this is too expensive a gift for me. Where did you get the money for this center?" Isabella asked, shining with happiness. She thought her children had long forgotten how their mother felt. But now she realized that her sons and daughter were still thinking about her. "Don't worry about it, Mommy," Sophia said. And Isabella happily agreed. Besides, her health had really begun to fail the poor woman lately. After all, she had been working several jobs all her life, so now she was ready to take a well-deserved vacation. Especially since she's not going to the center forever. Really? A week later, having packed all her things, Isabella left for the rehabilitation center, as she thought. In reality, it was just a rundown nursing home. The woman knew immediately what was up. She turned to her children and asked in bewilderment. "But how can this be? This is not a rehabilitation center. This is a nursing home," she said with annoyance. The woman had the first tears in her eyes. She didn't understand what she had done so badly for her children that they were treating her so horribly. "Mom, it's better for us. We can't all live together in the same apartment like this. You wanted what's best for us, didn't you? So, help us now, please. We want to sell the apartment and buy each of us a new one-room apartment, and you'll be better off here," the eldest son was saying. "I'll be better off with you, my loved ones. Especially since they can't take me to a nursing home, I'm not old enough yet," said the woman. "Mom, you said you're better off when we're better off. And we will be better off if you live here. We promise to come and see you whenever we can. You won't be here all alone. Don't worry about your age. Sophia's husband has arranged everything, he has some connections and he's taken care of everything," said the youngest son, Oliver. Isabella had to agree. She thought that maybe it was true her children would be much better off without her. "Let them each have their own apartment, and I'll live here somehow. I'm just a burden to them," said poor Isabella. After saying goodbye to the children, she went to the nursing home, where she was already met by the caregivers. They put her in a room where another woman suffering from sclerosis was already living. Over time, Isabella got used to the fact that she now had to live away from her family home and away from her children. They came only once, and that was only to get the woman to sign the documents to give up the apartment. They never dared to visit their mother again. Isabella waited every day for her children to come to her, but they never showed up on the doorstep of the nursing home. Isabella's life became ordinary, the days became similar to each other. Getting up, water procedures, breakfast, lunch, dinner, free time. This way of life at first did not please Isabella at all. But in time she managed to get used to it. She spent light days playing board games with other residents of the house, began to engage in some sports. In the evenings, the woman attended different events on the grounds of the home. Sometimes the old people were taken out to other places for the same activities. On one of these evenings, the woman met a man who was not much older than her. He was attracted by Isabella's sad look and hurried to approach her to try and make the woman laugh in some way. Robert approached her with a silly joke, but the woman liked it. They spent that evening together walking through the local park. "Why do you have such a sad face?" he asked. "I'd rather not talk about it," the woman answered timidly. Robert didn't question her further. Isabella liked that she didn't have to grovel, make excuses, or do anything to draw attention to herself in front of this man. She felt like a woman for the first time, needed and beautiful. Robert introduced himself to Isabella as a locksmith who worked at the nursing home that was hosting the event that day. That home cooperated with Isabella's home, so they met many more times on similar evenings. There were times when Robert would come to the woman's house to take her for a walk, to a restaurant, or to some other interesting place. Isabella was not at all surprised that an ordinary locksmith could take a woman to an expensive restaurant or come to pick her up in an expensive car. She did not care about that. There were times when a woman stayed with a man in an expensive apartment for the night. Robert confessed to Isabella in love. She sincerely believed him and reciprocated his feelings. The man promised the woman that he would soon take her out of the house and marry her. Next to him, she forgot about all her problems, evil children and tyrant husband, felt well in safety. Isabella was not upset when she found out she was pregnant. Her age didn't bother her at all. She knew she could give birth. Others have babies at 55 and nothing. Moreover, Robert promised to marry the woman before the birth and take her to his apartment. She was looking forward to the birth of the baby. While the belly was not visible, Isabella continued to live in a nursing home. Robert often came to see her, taking her to doctors and ultrasounds. Soon they were to find out the sex of the baby. It was the 6th month of pregnancy. The belly was already visible. "Have you put on weight, Isabella? It doesn't suit you," she was told by a nasty, boring nurse who kept an eye on the woman's room. Isabella tried to ignore her. But that nurse had disliked her ever since she arrived, and after she learned that she was having an affair with Robert, she hated her. But Isabella herself did not understand the reason for such a strong hatred. Isabella could not hide her pregnancy all the time. Once she was completely exhausted during the day, the woman sat down on her bed and began to stroke her large belly, calling her baby to come into the world sooner. At that moment, Isabella's nurse came into the room and immediately noticed the woman's huge belly. "How dare you? You just live here. And you want to have children?" yelled at Isabella. Isabella jumped up sharply. She didn't know what to say. "Listen, please don't tell anyone. I'll be out of here soon. I just need to wait here in the nursing home for a while." "Ask for whatever you want," she said. "How dare you ask me for anything else? You've been sheltered here, you're living here on a bird's license, and you dare to get pregnant? I'll go to the director and tell him all about you, you slut. How dare you have a baby at such an old age?" "Haha." The nurse laughed at Isabella. Isabella could not bear such an insult. She had learned a lot during her time in the nursing home, including how to stand up for herself. Now the woman knew her worth. "You're just jealous of me," Isabella said. When she saw the angry look in her nurse's eyes, she continued. Yes. You are jealous. I saw the way you looked at my Robert. Tell me honestly, you were just in love with him, weren't you?" "Yes," Isabella said. "Now I see who you're going to go to. I can tell you a lot about your Robert. He's been coming to our nursing home events for a long time. You know why? It's not because he works as a locksmith at our partner's facility. Your Robert is a local millionaire. He does charity work, funding money to our homes and helping old people like you. He comes to our soirees to meet old ladies like you. He's actually married with 2 kids. He's not seriously interested in a gray beggar like you. And you want to marry him? That's ridiculous. I'll tell everyone, let them laugh too," said the nurse, mockingly penetrating her interlocutor with her gaze. Tears came to Isabella's eyes. She didn't want to believe everything that the woman who had been caring for her for so long had told her. Had those words of love Robert had spoken to her really been a lie? That caregiver had really gone and complained to the nursing home management that Isabella was pregnant. She had nowhere to go anyway. The management was almost no different than the rude caregivers. They immediately reprimanded the woman for her horrible behavior and told her to leave the facility immediately. They didn't want to deal with the woman's pregnancy, especially since she was in the nursing home on less than legal terms. Isabella was thrown out on the street. She had nowhere to go. Overcoming her pride, the woman wanted to find out for herself. She dialed her lover's phone number on the smartphone that Robert had also given her. The caller was out of range. Maybe he's already given up on me? The woman thought. She decided she didn't want to hear from him again. When she really needed a man, he wasn't around. Isabella decided to take another desperate step, to go to her still beloved children to ask for help. She knew the addresses of their new apartments, so it was not difficult for Isabella to find them. But here, too, she was met with a setback. The eldest son James was on a business trip, and his wife would not let her mother-in-law even on the doorstep of their house. She yelled at her mother-in-law for daring to seek help from them. And when she saw her big belly, she laughed in her face. After the woman went to her daughter Sophia, she was really at home and even agreed to let her mother into the apartment, but she did not allow her to stay. "Mommy, I am also expecting a child. My husband was forgiven by his father, he arranged it in his company. Now we have money, we want to start our own business soon. As you see, we have a new life, but unfortunately there is no place for you in it. I'm sorry," she said and hurried to escort Isabella back to the street. Lastly, the mother tried to address her youngest son. Oliver and his wife were not home at all. A neighbor said the young couple had gone on vacation to the Maldives. So, they are doing well, living well, thought the woman, happy for her child. But she still had nowhere to live. So, Isabella wandered the streets of the city, not knowing what to do next. It was raining heavily, and the woman was soaking wet and cold. Her head was full of bad thoughts. She cried, hoping that no one would be able to see her tears in the rain. Exhausted, she almost fainted. Suddenly, an expensive car pulled up. Isabella would have fallen to the wet asphalt if Robert's strong arms had not picked her up. She woke up in his house. The woman wanted to leave, but the man hurried to stop her. "I looked for you in the nursing home, but the nurses admitted that you had been kicked out. I should have taken care of moving you to a safe good place right away, but I was afraid you would run away from me," he said. "Why should I run away?" the woman asked with interest. "Isabella, I have indeed been married, and I have really been pretending to be something I was not at all along. You will ask why I did it? I thought you wouldn't want to be with a millionaire, so I made up that locksmith nonsense. But I decided I really wanted to be with you. I haven't loved my wife for a long time, and I've been working on a divorce for a while now. I didn't want you involved because I was afraid my ex would get to you. She's a conniving woman," he said with sadness in his voice. "And that nurse was talking nonsense because she was in love with me and I rejected her." "So you will marry me?" Robert asked excitedly. "Of course I do," said Isabella with tears in her eyes. Even before the woman gave birth, the couple had time to play their wedding. Isabella's children were also at the celebration. They tearfully begged their mother to forgive them for all the bad deeds they had done. The woman was about to forgive them and throw herself into her arms, but Robert quickly realized the reason for their compassion for their mother. The man explained to his fiancée that her children were only begging their mother's forgiveness because she was now a millionaire's wife. "It's better to let them go than to know they're only with you for money," he said. Isabella forgave her children, but refused to communicate with them further. Robert wanted to stop funding nursing homes for his wife's harsh treatment. Isabella, on the other hand, advised her husband not to do that. "I think it's better to just change the management and staff," she said. The couple soon had a beautiful baby girl. Isabella and Robert were over the moon. Now the woman knew what true love and a normal life with a good man was. After the birth of her daughter, Isabella's life changed dramatically. Now she had a loving family, husband Robert and baby Sophia. The couple decided to name the girl in honor of their eldest daughter Isabella, hoping that she would come to her senses someday. Robert surrounded his wife and daughter with care and attention. He bought them a spacious mansion with a garden, where Isabella could walk with his daughter. Also at Robert's insistence, there was a nanny, a cook and a maid in the house at all times to help with the household and with the baby. Isabella enjoyed a life she had never dreamed of before. When Sophia turned 1 year old, Robert threw a grand party and invited many guests. Isabella's children and their families were among those invited. The woman was hesitant to invite them, but Robert insisted. "Let's give them another chance. What if they were truly repentant?" On the appointed day, the guests gathered at their luxurious home. Isabella's children and their spouses were among the first to arrive. They diligently congratulated the birthday girl Sophia and handed out expensive gifts. At the sight of the former children, Isabella's heart squeezed. What if Robert was right and her children had really changed? But her mother's joy was quickly replaced by bitterness. At dinner, James, Sophia, and Oliver began to ask about Robert's business, his income, and his plans. They obviously hoped to benefit from the acquaintance with the rich stepfather. Robert only answered evasively, not wanting to discuss personal matters. After the meal, the children approached Isabella and began to hint that it would be a good idea to share Robert's wealth with the family. The woman was shocked by their insolence and shamelessness. She asked the guests to leave, saying that it was time for them to go home. In farewell, the children promised to visit their mother more often, obviously expecting to receive money from her. But Isabella was determined to cut off all relations with them. Her real family is Robert and little Sophia, not greedy and heartless adult children. When Sophia turned 18, Isabella decided to tell her the truth about her own children. The girl was shocked by the indifference and greed of her half-siblings. She thanked her mother for giving her and her brother a real family and a happy childhood. After a while, Sophia married a nice guy named Mark. Robert fully blessed their union and helped the newlyweds to settle down. Soon they had a son, who was named Robert in honor of his grandfather. Becoming a grandmother, Isabella realized that her life was successful. She had a wonderful husband, a grateful daughter and now a grandson. She was surrounded by an atmosphere of love and understanding. Greedy native children never appeared on her doorstep again. But Sophia came with her husband and grandson. They often organized joint picnics, trips to amusement parks and trips abroad. Toward the end of life, Isabella and Robert moved to a cozy cottage by the sea. There they lived out their days peacefully, enjoying each other's company. Isabella often recalled her difficult youth and thanked fate for giving her a real family and happiness at the end of her life.